Okay, so everybody, thank you for coming to the August CAN board meeting. For those of you who are not board members, I loosely run this board meeting according to Robert's rules, which means public input. We'll ask for that at the appropriate point in time. So I'd appreciate it if you guys would just listen until we get to the point where the board wants some public input. Let me share what the plan is for today. That's the one. Can you see? That's not what I wanted. Sorry. You want
the agenda, huh?
I want the CAN website. I have to do my part to promote the CAN website at every chance. Okay, can you all see the CAN website?
Yes.
Perfect. And I'm rearranging my screen so I can see all your smiling faces at the same time.
Wow.
Okay, so today on the board meeting, we've got a consent agenda that'll go quick. I was reading through the bylaws, trying to clean up some stuff, and I've run into something that we need to vote on. I'll give you an update, and there's a much more detailed document behind that on what happened during the National Alliance to End Homelessness focus group this previous week. Patrick's got a bunch of stuff to share on where we are with the developer neighborhood notification work that he and a bunch of people have been working on. And then we'll either have time for new business or we'll have time for a short break before the general membership meeting. So let us begin with the consent agenda. You've all seen the treasurer's report and the meeting minutes from last week. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Can I get a second? Okay, anybody opposed? All right.
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. So let's move on to the one vote per member update. So I'm gonna drop out of this to make sure I'm sharing the right screen. And then I'm gonna bring up this document, I hope. And then I'm going to share that. So I was going through looking at where we are and how many members we have and just the situation in general. And I realized that when we changed the bylaws, got to be more than a year ago, maybe almost two, to allow executive committee members to vote, that the accidental side effect of that was that some neighborhoods actually had two votes. And the real core of the bylaws say that, every registered neighborhood should have a single vote. So I am proposing that we undo that by changing the bylaw text to say corporate officers shall sit as members of the board of directors unless their neighborhood is already represented by an existing board member. And then continue that with corporate officers shall each have one vote on matters before the board, except for any action regarding the removal of a corporate officer. So the way this works with Robert rules is I need a motion to accept this change, and then I'll open it up for discussion. So can I get a motion to accept the change?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, open discussion. Any concerns, worries, etc.? Patrick, I see your hands up.
Yes. Should it be that the corporate officers sit as voting members?
Yeah, that would probably be okay.
So I will offer that amendment.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, or feedback? I see Debbie's clapping, and did you intend to clap or do you intend to raise your hand, Debbie? I can't hear you. I think your audio is off. I have to unmute.
raise my hand.
Okay, yes.
So just for clarification, according to this, Patrick will have the vote and Barbara won't.
No. No, according to this, Barbara will have the vote and Patrick won't, because he's a corporate officer and there's another member of Hawk Creek who's already a board director. And according to this, Byron will have the vote for WeCan and Joe won't.
Got it.
Okay, Kathy, you had your hand up.
Okay, so it's determined if you're on the EC, that means you don't have a vote on the board, or, sorry, I just want more clarification.
In your case, you do have a vote on the board because there's not another board member already sitting on the board from Malvern Hills.
Okay, yeah.
And I have a vote because there's nobody else sitting for Kenilworth Forest. And Helen has a vote because there's nobody sitting for South French Broad.
Then I think, Rick, it could be clearer. This, to me, is a tad confusing.
Okay. I tried to make the minimum changes possible, so
Maybe just board member takes precedence over executive committee member for voting purposes in the case of two from a single neighborhood.
okay. I don't really want to drag everybody's time down. You know, retyping this into that document at this point in time, but how about Sharon, your comment first, please.
I agree with that because I don't see executive committee on there and I didn't know what you were talking about and I didn't want to appear stupid and ask. So I kind of
Oh,
agree with
Sharon,
Debbie.
it's okay. I'm glad to be the stupid one. It's all right.
So am I most of the time, but I'm too tired to appear stupid today. But yeah, if we could put it in the executive committee, then that would kind of clear it up for me as well. So in case someone comes up on Easton Valley that shows up, and I know I'm not on the executive committee anymore, but I kind of agree.
Okay,
with
so
Debbie.
here's what I hear. I just want to make sure I'm getting this straight. Corporate officers, which is the term that the bylaws use, doesn't ring out to you guys as the same thing as executive committee.
Put executive committee in parentheses behind corporate officers so that you have both definitions right there. Corporate officer, parentheses, executive committee.
Well,
Did
I'd
that
say
work for you, Sharon?
Pick one.
All right. Give me just a second here. I'm going to stop sharing so you don't have to see all the other garbage on my screen. Anybody else got any comments or things they'd want to share with the board while I'm actually editing this live?
Yeah, what if they're like two board members that aren't on the, neither one are on the executive committee?
You can only have one board member.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to check.
Anybody else?
Isn't the bottom line intent is just each neighborhood gets one vote and whether or not they're on the board or not on the board? That
Yep.
doesn't change. I mean, to me, that's very simple.
Yeah, you know, bylaws are by their nature words that are more complicated than they often need to be. But I respect the fact that people want a correction. So I think I can actually do that in real time here. If you give me just another second.
I missed the wind chimes.
The wind died down. It'll be back, I'm sure. With the bylaws, yeah, that seems typical that it's probably made clear earlier on that executive committee equals corporate officers. But then when you
Right.
Right, okay, yeah, to take it out just one piece, then it's confusing. That's always how those things are.
So can we live with this? I put executive committee behind corporate officers. So corporate officers of the executive committee shall sit as members of the board of directors unless their neighborhood is already represented by an existing board member. Keep in mind that executive committee members aren't always elected from board members. They can be elected by the board from any nominee from any neighborhood that's a member. So this will make it clearer to executive committee members when they're nominated that unless they already represent their neighborhood.
Mr. President, if we could put sitting as voting members to make it clear.
Are there non-voting members?
No, there aren't, but
Then that's
just for the point of clarity.
Yeah, there will be non-voting members. The ones, if there's someone on the on the executive committee that also has a representative on the board.
Right.
Every clarification helps, I think. I suppose we could wordsmith this for another hour if we really had some more stuff to drink. I didn't bring any adult beverages to this meeting. It's going to last too long. And any last comments? I want to take a roll call vote on this if it's okay with you guys. So I will, if there's no further comments, where do I have that kept? There it is. I'm going to turn sharing off. So I see that Tom has joined. Let me make sure I've got you in here, Tom.
All right.
So from voting, Debbie, yay or nay?
Yay.
Byron, yay or nay?
Yay.
Alan's not here. Tom, yay or nay?
Yay.
Steve Joyner, yay or nay?
Yay. Yay.
Barbara Melton, yay or nay?
Yay.
Sharon Summerall, yay or nay?
Yay.
I don't see Stephen Edge. Tracy Brown told me she can make it. Helen, yay or nay?
Yay.
Joe, yay or nay?
Yay.
Kathy, yay or nay?
Yay.
Dan, yay or nay? That's a yay. Steve, yay or nay? Rasmussen?
Yay.
Margit, your first vote as a board member. I see hand up, that's a yay. Okay. And I'll vote yay. Okay, so the measure passes. I will modify the bylaws. I will relink them to the CAN homepage.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
you forgot me.
Yeah, you know, I did that like subconsciously because you abstain all the time and I don't even actually have you in the list. So I will add you to the list and put an abstain. Would that be effective from your perspective?
Correct, but I do want to say that I support the bylaw amendment, but given my longstanding position that I don't feel executive committee members should be voting members of the board, I will abstain, and this bylaw amendment will certainly help me out going forward.
Because you're going off the list, buddy. Hey, enough Zoom meetings in 1 week. You got to have some fun here, a little bit, a little bit of humor. Okay. Abstain. All right. Let us get back to the agenda. Okay. So next on the agenda is homeless focus group impressions. Do you see my screen that says NAEH focus group, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to read this, but I'm going to give you the overall impression of where we are on this. And Helen and Patrick and Sharon and Kathy, who all attended, can certainly offer their thoughts. So we had quite a few people being interested in attending this focus group. And ultimately, I tried to balance it so it wasn't 99% East Asheville, since we have a fairly heavy leadership team here that is in East Asheville. And I specifically invited Bailey Stockwell to attend because she lived through the fun time that everybody had with the Ramada Inn last year. So we had a couple people who fell out at the last minute when, so we didn't have anybody from CBD because John Kaminsky thought that he might have COVID from contact. And we didn't end up with anybody from Kenilworth because Robert Maddox was not well. Robert then subsequently sent his thinking into the consultants. I would say that we were somewhat disappointed in that it wasn't a tightly structured focus group with, a comment period, brainstorming, solutions, and actions. So it was looser than we expected, but everybody who attended got more than an adequate chance to express their concerns, what they're worried about, what they think shouldn't be included in any future recommendations. NAEH is still in the fact-finding stage. So some members of the focus group were disappointed that we didn't get a preview of what they're going to recommend, but they're not actually in the analysis and recommendation stage. I thought there was good give and take, especially around low barrier or high access shelters versus sanctuary camping. One of our board members basically said, "Don't dare you put sanctuary camping into this proposal." She's smiling right now, so you can maybe figure out who that was. But I thought they got a very good dose of the problems that neighborhoods have felt: crime, litter, needles, people wandering around, all that kind of thing. So I think they have to sharpen their pencil, and I think they also got a good sense that there are certain things that people are certainly highly worried about, like sanctuary camping or low barrier shelters, and that they'd better think that through very carefully if they don't want public outcry with whatever that recommendation is going to be. They made an effort to undefine the Ramada disaster as a low barrier shelter because it wasn't run like one. It had no wraparound services. It didn't have adequate staff with the adequate skills to do what they'd been asked to do. I don't think they necessarily moved Bailey's opinion on that at all. But they are clearly looking at what the heck are we going to do with the people who are camping in people's backyards and the parks and all that sort of thing. They will report their progress every month at the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee, which is made up of half county and half city appointees. And for those of you who haven't followed all the darn details in the city council meeting last night, yours truly, me, have been added as the only neighborhood representative, as far as I can tell, to HIAC. And they know what they're going to get with me because I lobbied to all of them and explained that if they wanted the general feeling of 10 or 20 neighborhoods, that this is the way they needed to get it. And that really they should think about more live voices in this in the long term. And my understanding is there's more vacancies coming on HIAC, so there may be opportunities for other people to join, so there were more than one voice. But I think all of you know that if I am convinced that my voice has to be heard, I am not shy about making that be the case. So we'll monitor that very carefully, and I will constantly be seeking input from the board and probably trying to form a committee around this who can, read what's going to come out and, take action and that sort of thing. And there were several people who couldn't make the focus group from like Montford. There was somebody who really wanted to come, but they were busy that day. So we might actually get to make a focus group, a working group committee that's not fully populated with board members. So, that was kind of how this whole thing was always designed to be. You guys get the scoop from them. You tell them whether they're headed in the right direction or the wrong direction, but you don't have to be in on everything every minute of every day. So I'll stop talking. Any of the other attendees at the focus group want to say anything? Okay, I guess I didn't betray anybody or misstate. I mean, this is a long thing. We're going to hear from these guys every month all the way through the end of the year and into January. January is their target for final recommendation. I would add one more thing that maybe I forgot to put in print. When I first met Josh Johnson, who's the primary person doing this, I asked him straight up, do you have any obligation to make a recommendation that's going to make either the city or the county happy? Specifically, if you feel that the city and county staff do not have the wherewithal to execute the recommendations you have, does that put you in any kind of an awkward position? Or are you just going to tell it the way it is? And he said, we always tell it the way it is. Otherwise, our reputation as consultants would be ruined and we wouldn't be able to do this nationwide. I think it also helps that Dogwood Trust is paying the tab. So that's one slightly less conflict of interest with these guys. But they are about ending homelessness. They're not about safe streets and happy neighborhoods and tree protection and all that kind of stuff. So have no doubt that they're going to make a recommendation on what to do with the roughly 200 people that are unhoused and causing concern amidst the neighborhood. Helen.
I was a little disturbed at the very end when I asked, could they give us an example of another city that they have been successful in? And although she mentioned a few, she was very reluctant to share anything with me in writing, and well, she would not share anything with me in writing. She would not give me a list of any place where they had been successful in their consultancy work. She said they'd been moderately successful in some places. So I was a little disappointed that everyone shouldn't be too excited about this, because I'm not 100% sure we're going to get the full answer. We'll get a moderated answer.
Anybody else? Sharon, and then Patrick. Unmute, Sharon.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. I agree with Helen. I talked with him afterwards and stuck around and talked about 10 minutes. And I don't have a lot of high hope that they're gonna come up with something that's gonna work with us as neighborhoods, as opposed to just putting people in places and saying it's a done deal. And then they're gonna let us, in my opinion, sort it all out after they're gone. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Patrick?
Yes, I believe that and I forget her name, the woman who was heading this project, who was there.
Christy?
Yes, I think she said that they, in terms of giving any details about recommendations that they made for other cities, that information is proprietary. They would have to get the city's approval to release that.
Yeah, I
So,
remember something like that. We could reach out to them and ask them if they'd be willing to do that. That would
If we-
maybe,
If we
teach us
know the
something.
cities, did they volunteer the cities?
they did. I just don't know that any of us were taking notes at that moment in time in order to
Nice.
actually have captured which cities they said. But, you know, they're responsive to email, so I'll take the action. Kathy, if you'd be kind enough to capture this in the notes and minutes, I'll take the action to reach out to them for the cities that they have done work with and which of those that they would be willing to approach for contact so that we could talk to them how that's turned out. Man, and Kathy, your turn.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Rick for serving on that board, and I was taking notes, so I'll look to find out what cities were mentioned. There may be others. I may not have gotten all of them, but I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, Debbie.
If you want to follow up that too.
I think it makes more sense if you get the list of cities to contact those cities directly. Ask them directly how they feel about the results, rather than asking the consultant to release information. Let's go after the truth, not the PR.
I may not, I think I can accomplish both those things. I wanted them not to tell me what they accomplished. I wanted them to tell me the people who are executing the recommendations they left behind. Give us contact so we can reach out to those people. Then we should probably compare that to what the city website says, who's in charge of what. Okay, anybody else? All right, it's gonna be a long haul, and it's been a long haul up to this point. I guess I will remain cautiously optimistic, but watchful as the data starts to flow, and make sure that you guys are plugged in. And I'll get back to you next week or the week after about potential committee setup. Okay, going back to the agenda, we are now down to Mr. Gilbert, who has some slides that he's going to use to sort of walk you guys through. There he go. Hang on a second. You see a big white slide that says
Mhm.
Neighborhood and Developers Guide.
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick, take it from here, buddy.
okay, I hope everyone remembers that I think it was back in May that I reported to the board that we had that the city had decided to divide this project into 2 phases, in part because of staffing issues, losing staff in both the Department of Development Services and
Uh-oh. Patrick, you're frozen if you can hear us. What's the matter with Hawk Creek, Barbara? Don't you guys have decent internet over there in the hinterlands?
We've had trouble because a tree fell across the line down coming into Hawk Creek, and instead of cutting it up, they left it just hooked over the line.
Nice.
So one of my UVerse TVs didn't work this morning, and I was preaching, but it
Department
wasn't
of
a
Planning
nice
that had been working
preaching.
on
There you
this.
go. He's
Hey,
back.
hey, Patrick. Oh, total crash.
Oh, he's gone completely.
Yeah, I'm gonna text him. He's trying to come back to life.
Am I
Hey,
back?
Pat, you're
Yep.
back. Unfortunately,
right.
you froze like 1 sentence into your pitch.
Mhm.
Okay. So for those of you who were on the board back in the spring, you should remember that I reported to the board that because of staffing shortages and Development Services and Planning, city staff had decided to break up this project into 2 phases. The first phase would be to implement the actual neighborhood meeting guide. And the second phase would be the UDO amendments that we had requested that would be important aspects to this guide. And I asked the board's approval to support the go-ahead for implementing the neighborhood meeting guide, which you did. So the phase 1 has now been completed and will go live in a couple of weeks. So I wanted to go through this. I hope both quickly but clearly what this project is about. So if you could go to the next slide. So there's 2 main takeaways from this project. First, I want to point out that because the UDO required neighborhood meeting takes place before a developer formally makes a project application to the city, the status of the neighborhood, which starts the neighborhood review process through the technical review committee, the city does not play an official role in the neighborhood meeting. Even though it's required by the UDO, this is a sole obligation of the developer. But as a result of this project, the neighborhood meeting will become part of the technical review development process. So that's one takeaway. The other takeaway is that because it will now be part of the official part of the TRC approval process, the TRC, which for those of you who don't know, are made up of heads or designees of city departments that play a role in the development review process. If a developer does not comply with all elements of the neighborhood meeting guide, the TRC can place a hold on the development project until all those elements are met. So I think those are the 2 really important takeaways from this project. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Yes, I do. That's always been the case. Is it just now formalized on paper?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Carol, you have to unmute. You have to unmute, Carol.
Does this mean that the neighborhood meeting will no longer happen before the plan is actually submitted?
No, it will still happen before the plans are submitted.
Thank you.
There is a slight change on that, which I'll get to in due course. Okay. In the board meeting document file, I put in there a number, I think it's 6 documents, and with the hope that the board members would at least read through those. So I'm going to go through those documents, one document at a time. Next slide, please.
Neighborhood meeting guide
No, next slide. Oh,
after the neighbor.
What's the next slide?
yeah, the neighborhood meeting guide. Gotcha. Okay. So neighborhood meeting guide, which will be online on the city simplicity development webpage, lays out the expectations for how developers should notify the city about impending neighborhood meetings, notify property owners of what impending neighborhood meetings, scheduling and setting up the meetings, conducting the meetings, and reporting the meetings to the city. In turn, the guide gives neighborhoods and residents a detailed template for how these meetings should be run. It provides neighborhood association and residents with an opportunity to ask developers questions and to make comments and suggestions. Here are some important things to know. As I said, the guide will live on the city's Simplicity website and will be there as a downloaded and printable PDF. One implication, the city will notify the developer community and the persons listed by the city as a neighborhood association contact that the guide is live and is now part of the development and technical review process. While the city gets a notice from the developer of an impending neighborhood meeting, in addition to the letter that developers send out to adjacent property owners, the city will notify neighborhood association contact people of an impending meeting as long as those contact people are signed up with Simplicity to get notices. Although concerns raised by neighborhood association and residents were recorded in the neighborhood meeting report, although concerns raised by neighborhood associations and residents in recording the neighborhood meeting report will not, by law and by the UDO, be a determinant factor in whether the TRC approves or rejects a development process. However, the city's neighborhood and community engagement manager, which is part of the TRC, will read into the record any comments, concerns, objections, or support from this neighborhood meeting related to a particular neighborhood project. At this point, the neighborhood meeting guide does not include language related to the UDO amendments, which I will go into in a few minutes. Are there any questions about the neighborhood meeting guide?
Yes. When they say read into the record, does that mean it's going to go on the staff report? Is that what they meant?
Correct.
Thank you. I love you. Thank you.
Margate?
Patrick, I'm wondering, we had a additional dwelling unit, ADU. Does this have anything to do with them, or is that?
No, ADUs don't go through the TRC development review process.
Okay, Steve?
Patrick, you mentioned that the representative of the neighborhood association has to be signed up on Simplicity to be contacted by the developer. Is that something separate? Is that something like you have to do separately, each neighborhood association? Or is it already kind of rolled into it by our registration with the city?
Well, the developer won't use Simplicity to notify neighborhoods. The UDO requires them to send letters to property owners who are within a certain feet adjacent to the development site. But the city, and this is an additional step, the city will also notify the neighborhood contact person of an impending neighborhood meeting. So typically, it'll be the president of a neighborhood association who is the contact person that the city has on record. It could be, a vice president, it could be a secretary, but whoever that person is, in order to get a notice and alert the rest of the neighborhood association, they will have to be, they will have to sign up with Simplicity, and they will get an email from the city about a neighborhood meeting.
I see. So our neighborhood presidents should make sure they're signed up on Simplicity, basically.
Yes, and I will address that point a little later.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Joe, your
Just-
hand's up.
Yeah, does this only apply to does it apply to all developments or only level 1, level 2? Is there anything that doesn't apply to?
Neighborhood meetings in the current UDO apply to level 2, level 3, and major subdivisions. It does not apply to level 1. And I will get into that again a little bit later.
Okay, thanks.
Patrick, are you going to mention whether the neighborhood is organized or not? Is that coming up in a later talk with you?
Well,
I didn't want, okay, I wanted to ask a question. If we don't have a formalized neighborhood,
so yeah, I've had discussions with the city about the city notifying CAN of an impending neighborhood meetings if the development is in an area that does not have an existing organized neighborhood association.
So we're down to about 10 minutes, Patrick.
Okay.
So you're going to have to shorten up what you want to say or reschedule the rest of this because I don't want to cut short, but we have to start the general membership meeting promptly at 6, and people need at least a couple minute break between here and there.
Right. I'll hurry and try to get through it. If I don't, the document is in the board meeting file. People can read it. I don't want to bring this back at the next meeting because the implementation will already have occurred. So I will go through, I'm going to go skip the rest of the documents other than the 5th document, which is the neighborhood meeting summary report. And just let you know that the summary report will contain different fields that developers must fill in. It's much more detailed. Well, it's very detailed. And we insisted that it be detailed to meet our demands that the neighborhood meeting summary report be consistent. So every developer will have to put in the same information. So that's going to be helpful to that. If you would go to the 6th, I think it's a 6th slide, UDO changes.
There you go.
Okay. So these are the UDO changes that I received from the city this afternoon. The ones that are highlighted, the first one that you can read, that is going to be the statement in the UDO that makes the neighborhood meeting process officially part of the TRC development review process. So that's very important because right now it isn't. The other one is a requirement to register the neighborhood meeting with the city at least 14 days ahead of time. And then, except for the CBD, the radius of required notification will be expanded from 200 feet to 400 feet, which is what we had recommended. What's not right now in the UDO changes, and I think it's as a result of the sort of chaos that was created with staff shortages, people leaving, that we insisted on was a requirement for a second neighborhood meeting if certain design standards change from the initial meeting. And the other one is that a neighborhood meeting would be required for certain level 1 projects. And I had email exchange with Chris Collins today, and we are going to meet next week to go over those 2 UDO changes that aren't in the city's list right now. So what I'd like to do is ask every board member to go back to their neighborhood association and find out who the person of contact is that they have with the city. Find out whether that person has been is signed up for Simplicity, and if not, ask them to sign up for that, and then shoot me an email that you have done that, because we have sort of given our word to the city that this is a two-way street, and that we need to take some accountability and responsibility for making sure that our neighborhood associations and the residents that live there are aware of any neighborhood meeting related to development in their neighborhood. So if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
I think Margit, you opened your hand again. Is that true?
Yes, could I have your email, Patrick?
Yes, it is Gilbert's, GILBERTS 0924 at gmail.com.
0924.
Correct, at gmail.com.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I do want to quickly thank the Government Relations Committee. I know that Sharon Barber was on that committee, as well as Alan Eskovitz and Mike Lewis. We had a lot of intense but productive meetings with the city. And I think this is a great win for neighborhoods. And I just want to push quickly to get all the UDO amendments lined up so that by November, all this is in place. So that's it from me, Mr. President, unless anyone has any questions, comments.
So I think Sharon's got her hand up.
Thank you, Patrick, very, 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 very much. I need to ask you, I think you said in the beginning, I want to make sure I am signed up as I am a neighborhood leader. Did you say that Get on Simplicity? Did they put that tab on there yet for neighborhood meeting? And I can check to see if I'm on there.
They will put that on there prior to it going live.
Okay. Thank you so much, Patrick, for all your hard work. It's everything
Well done.
and
Well
more.
done.
Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Dan, your hand's up.
Yes, it is. Patrick, what's the official title of this effort, for lack of a better term?
It's the Neighborhood Meeting Project.
Thank you.
Anybody else? What Patrick and I will do soon, I won't give you an exact date, within a week, is we'll take all these links and we'll put them over in the government relations tab, so that you have links to his slides, links to all 6 documents, and a little header there, so that it'll be here in perpetuity, so that when we schedule the next board meeting, you won't lose your way to find these documents. And by all means, as Patrick suggested, if not you, whomever the person in your organization that cares a lot about developments going on in your neighborhood, please have them read them and give any feedback as quickly as possible, because it's going to go live, and then you know how long it takes to get a subsequent change once stuff's gone live.
Right. It's very important that both the president, and if it's not, if he or she is not the contact person, that they read these documents so that they know what to expect in these neighborhood meetings. Because they're the ones that are going to tell the city that a developer did not abide by these neighborhood meeting requirements.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Thanks for the hard work. Thanks for the pitch. We got
Rick,
7 minutes.
time for a real
Alan?
quick question. Patrick, I missed the first part of the meeting because I was on a Zoom. The tab you're referring to on Simplicity is what, Ben?
Well, on the Simplicity development site,
Yes.
there will be a neighborhood meeting tab.
Okay. Got it.
And, okay,
Yep.
Joe,
Quick business. When is the next meeting? Are we moving it to Wednesday? Is it going to be the 4th or the 5th week of September?
I don't know yet because I don't have the results from tomorrow night's conflict with the boards and commissions team.
Okay.
I'm going to count on the folks who are attending that because I'm going to drop out of that effort with what I need to do on Hayek and the homelessness. I have to push something off the table, and we have Alan and Sharon and Helen and Susan Feinblatt who've been attending these. So, you know, you guys let me know whether there's another conflict that's going to happen in September. Otherwise, we'll go back to our original Thursday times, unless the board tells me that they like Wednesday nights better than Thursday, because it doesn't matter to me. Any other thing to do with Patrick's stuff? Okay, so you know, anybody got any new business they want to at least highlight? We've got 5 minutes before we turn on the next meeting. Dan?
Hey, Rick, Montford got one of those $5,000 neighborhood City of Asheville grants for kudzu removal. So I don't remember who offered up the kudzu advice way back when, but we have parlayed that into some efforts to get rid of kudzu, and we're going to start on the Reams Creek Greenway, basically behind Pinecrest. So I'm excited that that the process works as it's supposed to.
That's great. Anybody else new business? Kenilworth Forest. Go ahead, Sharon. I'll go last.
I was just gonna say that Eastern Valley on Saturday is having a big party, 9 bands. It's our Heritage Festival at MLK Park with food and all kinds of great stuff, starting at about 11 o'clock till 9 p.m. So Saturday, come on out to MLK Park, and it's our Heritage Festival that honors all of our past neighbors and neighborhood from Eastern Valley.
Awesome. Okay. Can I get a motion to?
Carol has her hand up.
Who does?
Carol?
I think her hand's, oh, do you have another one, Carol? I'm sorry, your hand's been up.
Can I just introduce myself? I'm
Sure.
Carol Meyer. We've just started a new Sulphur Springs Neighborhood Association in West Asheville on in the area that's across and up the hill from the DMV on Patton Avenue. So it's truly in West Asheville, across on the other side of Patton Ave from the Malvern Hills Neighborhood Association. And the impetus for this is the sale of yet another parcel of green space. This is 4 acres of woods across from my house on High Alta Avenue that we're very concerned about, you know, just clear cutting the woods and doing another project like the Woodland Project, which is also in this neighborhood now. So thank you for existing. I'm delighted to find out that there's all of this work going on. And thank you, Patrick, for the neighborhood association work meeting. Yeah.
Thanks, Carol. Carol, meet Helen. Helen is, she's the best point of contact to see if there's deeper engagement that you guys would like to have with CAN, and can help you advocate and get items on our agenda to help you out going forward.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, 2-minute break. I'll start it all back up again when Emily joins at a couple minutes past 6. So have a quick break.